Hi, this is the England Rugby Podcast with O2 Inside Line. Joining me this week is Amy Cokayne and Sarah Beckett. I'm pleased to say I've got Amy Cokayne and Sarah Beckett with me. How is life in camp?
Yeah, not too bad. We just come in this morning, had our COVID tests done, and then ready for a day of training ahead.
So you are current Six Nations champions and holders. Quite a strange 2020 for everyone, but I can imagine for you as a sports team kind of playing in France in that heat, then going up to Scotland playing in a cyclone or a storm, and then having 8 months off to then win the tournament without even playing a game. Quite a strange year for you guys as a team.
Yeah, I think the Six Nations, like you said, the heat and then the snow was just two contrasting situations. But I think as a team, you always want to test yourselves in different conditions and see if you can be a dry weather team and a wet weather team. So to be able to do that within a space of a week was probably quite good for us. And then even realised it was an option that we could have won it at the weekend. So I sat there watching the Scotland game, and then it was all just chat of, I think we've just won the Six Nations now. And it was just a bit weird. But then there's all messages in the group and stuff. So definitely a weird one. Definitely one to remember.
For you guys in 2020, having that massive gap in between games, how did you guys stay connected? How did you stay busy? How did you stay aligned in your sort of thought process to come out of it?
I think we did quite, especially in lockdown, in the whole lockdown period, we stayed connected by, I think everyone had a Zoom call. I think Zoom's the new biggest thing to invest in. But no, we had Zoom calls, we did review on our games. And then as soon as we've come back into camp, it feels sort of like we never left, I think. Like we've come back in, we were all focused on the next job that we had to do and coming back in. And obviously we had some new girls come in from the Sevens programme and some new girls come in from the Premier 15. So it was cool to get to know them as well. And everyone integrated really well.
Did you enjoy that sort of period and in terms of, did you feel like an individual sports person, because you got to run your own programs for a period there and train at home in your own time? Or is that something that you guys are kind of accustomed to? Because you're obviously full-time professional now. Was that the case during that lockdown period?
I absolutely love lockdown. I turned my garage into a bit of a gym, got to do my own programme. Don't tell the S&Cs I did my own programme, but I loved it. Got to do what you want when you wanted. You weren't thinking about, I've got a game at the weekend, so I've got to be fresh. If you absolutely ruined yourself in a session, there was no consequence. You just got up the next day. Got up the next day and did it again. So you could really have fun, I would say, with your training, which was really refreshing for myself. That
resonates with me because whenever you're told to do something, it doesn't feel as good, does it? But I remember when coaches gave us kind of free time or optional weights or optional training, everyone would turn up, 100%, everyone would turn up and do it. But when you can choose what you want to do and how to apply yourself, it's so much more enjoyable.
I think I'm pretty lucky. So at home, at my dad's house was where I spent lockdown. We had a watt bike and some weights anyway, so I could get a good few sessions done there. But I think girls have been creative with their programmes. We don't all have that equipment, and some girls were limited to some kettlebells. So I think some real creativity with programming and how to keep yourself fit. But I also think that was what kept it fresh, and we had a good time creating our own sessions and having to be creative in what we were doing.
Oh, we actually had a fitness testing as well in the middle of lockdown. So we had to film ourselves doing all the exercises that they sent. So obviously we did the 1200 metre run and you just had to send your time, I think.
You had to video it to make sure that we'd done it and we weren't cheating.
So the S&C had to go through and look through all of our reps of stuff. But I was quite lucky because I had a rack with a bar.
I think all that stuff breeds that sort of resilience, and only you guys can kind of drive your careers and your training. So I think that's really cool. But Sarah, you obviously went back home. Is that the same place you grew up, down the road from Waterloo?
Yeah. So my dad still lives down the road from Waterloo, so that's where I spent lockdown. So it was pretty good. Could go to the rugby club and do my running sessions on the pitch there, or not on the pitch, but on the side of the pitch because it was getting reseeded and whatever else. But no, it's pretty good. It's handy to have a pitch there and somewhere to go and do skills or running.
Hang on, let's get into that a bit more. It's literally on the same road, right?
Yeah, as in like it would take me 3 minutes to walk to the rugby club.
Or 30 seconds to run there?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how fast. I don't think I'm that fast, but yeah.
So what's the family ties? Like, how did you kind of get into rugby? I know your family's kind of involved down at Waterloo RFC. Is it just a natural kind of, you just had to do it?
Yeah, I know I was never forced into doing it, or I think it was actually me who brought it up to say, oh, I'd really like to play. But my brother was playing rugby down at Waterloo. He played there since he was 5. And I was there on a touchline every Sunday morning and just decided that I wanted to get involved. And I think that's a pretty similar story to the girls who started playing when they were younger. A lot of them have been there where their brothers are playing and just thought, oh, well, I may as well get involved. But my family ties there, so my granddad on my mum's side, he was the president of Waterloo and played for Waterloo. My dad played for Waterloo and he's the chairman of the mini and junior section now. My brother played at Waterloo, my uncle played at Waterloo. That's where my mum and dad met, at the rugby club. So yeah, it's pretty much my sort of home club.
Well, it sounds like a bloody dynasty down there. It's like the Tuolagis at Leicester.
No, not at all.
Amy, for you, similar to myself, you obviously got some Kiwi roots there. What about your sort of story, your upbringing, how you got to the game?
Yeah, so obviously moved out to New Zealand when I was 9, but I already played rugby back in England, similar to Beckett. My brother played. Had to go and watch his training sessions and just probably annoyed his age group coach by trying to join in too much. So then they chucked me down to my own age group. And then, yeah, like you say, I went to New Zealand and it's the only thing to do, isn't it? So it's like a way of life. So yeah, played for a little club called Bulls in the Rangatiki.
Great pronunciation, I love that.
Yeah, so then moved to Fielding High School in the Manawatu, played there, played with some amazing people, had an amazing coach and kind of really instilled that like professional side of rugby and like standards on and off the pitch that kind of drove me to move back to England really to try and pursue this dream.
Do you think New Zealand, your kind of upbringing or your experience playing rugby in New Zealand put you in good stead? Like you touched on it there, kind of the professional kind of standards that were instilled in you from an early age. Anything else that kind of helped you on your journey?
When I played in New Zealand, I used to play for my school on a Sunday and my like women's club on a Saturday. So I was like 13, like year 9 at high school, playing with women's and playing against Black Ferns from the age of like 13, which is just like, if you come over here, I then moved over here and I was 17 and they wouldn't even let me play in the women's grade. And I was like, I've just been smashed for years against Black Ferns. I think I can play women's rugby here. So I think just those experiences of being absolutely ran over by bigger, stronger women from such a young age kind of makes you grow up a bit. And yeah, so definitely would not be the player I am if I hadn't grown up over there, definitely.
That's madness. Like I always played a year ahead of myself or a year young, and I thought that put me in good stead. But you're playing like 10 years young. That seems madness.
And I was front row as well, so definitely got smashed, taken off the ground a few times in the front row, playing against so I played for Fobbo, like Field Old Boys, and Ruth Mackay, she was a Black Fern prop. She played for Kiatora down the road. So that was the big derby game. We were like the 2 top teams, and she definitely ruined me a few times in some scrums. Made me get a bit better in my scrummaging.
Do you know what? Like I've obviously seen you guys play, and I've followed you guys alongside when we were playing. And Amy, I honestly thought you were older. And it's not the sort of thing you say to a lady, but you've amassed a lot of games, and you're still only 24. You're like an old head. I mean, you've been playing the game since you were 13, women's rugby, so yeah, you technically are. But for Sarah, you're obviously a bit younger, and still I was actually amazed at how many caps you've amassed in such a short time. So when did you get capped? Were you 18, 19?
Yeah, I was 19 when I first got capped. My first cap was November 2018.
You now have a chance, with the game, like England women's, you're like the trailblazers, like you're pioneering into full-time, contracts and stuff like that. Is this a viable career for you going forward, like to throw yourself into from such a young age?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's amazing now that girls who are 7 when I started playing can look up and think, oh, one day I want to be a professional rugby player. And I think the game's only going in one way, and I think it's only going up and going to become more positive, and there's going to become more media and stuff around it, and I think that will help grow the game and grow the professionalism of the game. I think from the league as well, it's become so much more professional, even in the 3 years that it's been around already. Like the change from that first year to the third year and now into the fourth year is palpable, and I think you see that reflected in younger girls coming through into the squad earlier. So like you've got Morwenna Tallinn, who's come into the squad. She was 17 when she started training with us, and you know, for a second row, that's unbelievable. Well, for anybody, never mind a second row. So.
Look at Amy nodding over there going, that's cute. I was 13 when I was playing against...
I had 20 caps by then.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, but I think it's the RFU are doing an amazing job at trailblazing and leading the way in women's rugby, and I think there's got to be calls on the rest of the unions to sort of try and catch up and give their women a chance to do what we're doing.
And Amy, for you, like, I know you're still young, but you've seen, I suppose, that transition from amateur grassroots to full-time professionalism. What's your experience of that in your time?
I think it's obviously amazing, the transition. You know, when I first went into an England camp, it was like back in 2014, and it was like people had to take weeks off work. So I was lucky to go into some of the camps, and it was like they're in camp all week, get the weekend off, and you're back in camp all week. But people still had jobs, so they were just saying, "Can I have 6 weeks off work?" It's just like nuts. So I think we're in such a privileged position now to this be our job. I would just probably err on the side of caution that we don't kind of fall into the problems that maybe the men's side have of we've got young people like Beckett coming into, have this job of being a full-time rugby player that then don't go and have anything outside of rugby and don't have any qualifications. And, you know, we're not on long-term contracts in this job, so in a year, 2, whatever it is, it could be gone. And if you don't kind of set yourself up for something outside of rugby, I think it could be a huge problem for quite a few people, that we don't just sell these young kids the dream of, here, be a professional rugby player, without kind of pushing them into having something outside. Like, having something outside of rugby was huge for myself. Like, I took a year or 2 out to do something else because I just felt rugby was too much of my entire life. And I think you have to do that to be in this environment, but it can't be your whole life because it can be quite a dark place sometimes if you let it be. So I would say we've got to push to get girls something outside of rugby as well, definitely.
That's great. Like, you guys are almost the perfect example, you know, to the men, because the game's been full-time professional for so long with the men. Like, do you know what? And I lived through it. It makes you lazy in so many ways about what the real world's like. I mean, you're driven, you're professional, you do all these things, but it makes you really naive to how the real world kind of acts. And I was thinking that the fact that you guys are free now to train and compete and not worry about taking time off work is great, but also drives competition. Like, there's going to be young whippersnappers coming for you guys. And I mean, I know you're both still young, but there'll be competition for places, so you can't kind of rest on your laurels, can you? You've got to keep pushing. I'm kind of interested about your work career, Amy, at RAF. I just know nothing about it. Like, tell us what you do. Like, do you fly like fighter jets or something?
Yeah, I'm basically Top Gun, so I'm just like Tom Cruise. That's what my job is. No, joking. So I'm actually in the Air Force Police. So I obviously went through my officer training, which was 6 months up in Cranwell, and then did 6 months down in Portsmouth doing my police training. And then fortunately the Air Force allowed me to take my England contract again, and have released me basically on elite athlete status to fulfil this England contract. But in my contract it says I have to be released to play my 2 inter-service games for the Air Force. So we obviously play the Army and the Navy each year. Big, huge competition. I've played it in about 5 years now. We've only won it once. We beat the Army for the first time. First game they've ever lost in inter-services in like 26 years was back in, we didn't play it this year because of COVID, but the year before. So yeah, the Air Force has been huge, and that was really important for me, like coming off the back of 2017, being contracted for that period, and life was rugby, 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 rugby. And when we fell short at that last hurdle of the final and not winning, it was kind of like just such a big down. And I just thought I can't let myself be this in like just rugby. So I took a year out and just sorted myself out, did the Air Force, and it was probably the best thing for me. Came back to rugby really hungry to like train and play and make myself better again. So I probably added a few years onto my career.
Brilliant. It's great to hear that sort of perspective, I suppose. See, you're wise. You're old and wise, you see.
I don't know if many people would agree with you, but yeah.
I'd agree sometimes.
Sarah, what about you? Like, you obviously still young. Have you got balance in your life? What do you get up to outside of footy?
I can't say at the moment I do. I think this year I feel like it's really important for me to just focus on doing the best job that I can, especially in the position that I'm playing. Like, there's so much competition, and I think for now I need to focus on rugby and being the best rugby player that I can. But you know, my parents growing up always emphasised how important school was, so I got my A-levels, like did good A-levels, got good A-levels, so that if I wanted to go and do something in the future, like I can go and do something hopefully. And then, yeah, I mean, I've been looking into courses and stuff to do just to occupy my free time, really. Like, obviously camp's a very high intensity environment, but you do get quite a bit of downtime because you can't train all day every day. So yeah, finding something to do and looking into different sort of avenues that I might want to go down when I'm a bit older or want to do something after my rugby career. But yeah.
I think what I hear from both of you, there's like two different points there. So you're a bit younger, you're saying throw yourself into rugby, which I totally agree with. I think you're young enough to give a good crack at this. Whereas Amy, you're a bit more established and you've found that balance and you've learned like having things outside of rugby is good for you. I went and spoke to all the academy graduates or academy intake, and I think the RPA wanted me to say, make sure you're studying, make sure you're doing all these things outside of rugby. And I said the opposite. I said at 17, 18, 19, throw yourselves into it. Like, you've got a year or two to make a good crack of it. And if you establish yourself, like, you can find balance, a bit like you're saying, Amy. But if it doesn't work out, you're still young enough to go study, to pick up a apprenticeship or work out your life. You know, you're only 19, 20, you've still got time. So I agree with both of you. Just quickly, Sarah, have you ever thought about a singing career?
Oh no, I actually don't like doing it in front of people, so I don't think that would go down very well for me.
Just be like Sia and wear a face covering at all times.
One of your friends, I'm not going to drop them in it, but they said don't judge her by her talking voice.
What's that? Who was it?
I'll tell you off camera. I can't commit to it live, obviously. But no, I hear you're quite the singer.
Nah, not really. I think I've been overrated. I think everyone's come in and been like, oh, you're quite good, so then it blows up. You know what I mean? Like, when somebody's like half good at something, you're like, oh, you've got something other than rugby that you're half decent at. So
Nah, she's pretty good. She did a good Jolene video during lockdown, and I think everyone was pretty shocked by it and perked a few people up.
Jolene, 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 I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 please don't take him just because you can. Your beauty is beyond compare, the flaming lights of auburn hair.
On the subject of singing, my daughter has actually wrote some questions. I said I'm talking to two ladies, rugby players today, and she was like, what are you going to ask them? And I was like, I don't know. So she's wrote you a couple of questions here. And this is a 5-year-old's handwriting.
oh,
It's not mine.
That's so
It's not
cute.
mine. And question number 2 is, what song do you sing and what is the song? So obviously we know what song we sing. We both sang the national anthem. But you know, when you're lined up, is it good, Amy, standing next to Sarah, or do you avoid standing next to someone that sings so well?
I think I personally would avoid it because I'm such a foghorn. Like, I'm just loud, so out of tune, just trying to carry it through with some passion, not necessarily any talent. So I think people would probably avoid me, and I should probably just be at the other end doing my own thing.
I think the national anthem is a really hard song to sing. Like, I can't work out what key it's in, where I should start. Lark Davis is really good at singing it, so I don't really like standing next to her because she shows everyone up. But I generally stand next to Jess Breach and Zoe Harrison, and Zoe Harrison is possibly the worst person to stand next to while singing the anthem. You might have seen the Twitter beef that's going on at the moment.
No, I haven't. Please tell me more.
So I think they did like a O2 inside line thing, and they were like, "Who's the worst singer?" So I retweeted it like it's 100% Zoe Harrison, and she's gone out and taken a picture at a well-known petrol station. Which is, it's apparently something to do with beef that Stormzy and another rapper had that she sent me a picture of. So, and she said, I've got 24 hours to reply. So.
Well, you've got the platform now to out her and just, basically stitch her up and take this to the next level if you want,
I just think we should find a clip of when we've gone through, when the camera goes through and when it focuses on Zoe and it's like, God save her. That's literally what she sounds like.
I just want a note here. Find Zoe and clip that. National anthem for me was always quite an emotional time. For some reason, I always thought about my drivers, like my family, trying to do them proud and things like that. So I was always happy it was like a short song. The anthem was kind of short and concise. But my kind of problem is like at home at Twickenham, when you've got 86,000 people with you, it's all good. You can go all out. You can really go for it. But when you go to an away ground and they always muck up like the soundtrack, I don't know if they do it on purpose or whatnot, or they get some weird version like number 6 on Spotify, national anthem, like they go down and they get like some acoustic version or something. I always found it way harder to commit, but any experiences like that for you guys?
In San Diego, they played when we were out in the Super Series, they played the first verse, and then they kept playing it, but we don't know we don't sing the next verse. So
you were like, jackets off, go warm up, and
it just kept playing, and we were like, we don't know the words. So we just sort of stood there until they turned it off.
That's awful, yeah. I once played for under 20s and we were playing against Canada, and there was just no sound system. So they were like, just sing it. So we were just stood there like, oh my God. And we're like, no one could start. And it was awful. It was like the worst national anthem ever. So then we actually had to do a practice of just singing, because we were playing them again. They're like, there won't be a sound system again. So we had to do a practice of who's going to basically lead it, and everyone just follow them, and it was awful. It was like Canada sung theirs really well, and we were just embarrassed the nation. So it was.
I think the hardest thing is because you're in a line, you can't get timing. It's not like you're in a circle and you can all see each other and bounce off each other. Yeah, that's madness.
I always struggle with the soundtrack as well, because I feel like we hear it faster, or we sing faster than we hear it, and then we're out of time, and yeah.
So we play the same game, or I did play that game. Men's, women's, but how, in your opinion, is the game different for you guys? You can only kind of draw on your own experiences or your own opinions, but there's things in the training week. Do you guys have to do your hair? When do you do your hair? That doesn't happen in the men's game. No one does you guys braid your hair and stuff like that, right?
It's a big thing, isn't it? And I think we had a chat, I can't remember whether it was last Six Nations or something, but we had an early kick-off, and obviously you go through your prep and your meals and whatever else, and we were like, well, when are we going to do our hair? When are we going to have the time to do our hair? And we had to talk to the coaches about putting a bit in the schedule where we could have a break.
We also one year had injuries, so say we've got 2 girls on the team that can plait, they weren't in the team for whatever reason, not selected or injured or whatever, and we were like, we've literally got no one that can plait hair. And we were playing up in Doncaster. So someone got in touch with the Doncaster women's team and was like, does anyone in your team plait hair? And then, they had a hairdresser. So she came into camp and plaited our hair for us. And then she came to quite a few games, that Six Nations, because we just didn't have anyone in the team that could do it.
Surely, something like a physio or a team manager, someone needs to upskill themselves there.
Yeah, I know. It needs to be a job.
Maybe that can be my next thing outside of rugby. Maybe that can be my skill that I learn.
So you've gone to the coaches, you've asked them to put a hairdressing or hair braiding session into the schedule. Why?
My hair gets in my face otherwise, and you can't see the ball. Yeah, I think it's one to make you feel. I think it's part of my personal prep to feel ready for the game. Like I like my hair a certain way to play the game, and that's me starting to get into my match day. This is what I'm doing. But yeah, it's just also functional that it doesn't get in your eyes or your face.
But that's like the whole team, isn't it?
Yeah, I've played a few games where I haven't had it done, or I've had it done but only like half, and then my hair's come out and I've got quite long hair, and I'm like running around the pitch like Shabao, like can't see anything. I have no idea how we played like that, because I'm like, I can't see, I'm trying to carry, like hairs everywhere. It's literally the worst thing. So, and my mum always has a go at me when I don't get it done, because she's like, you look messy. I'm like, sorry, then I get it done.
I've the same kind of predicament in my house when my wife isn't home, or she's out early and I've got to take my daughter to school. She just has to wear a hat. I can't do her hair. So it's like, you just put a beanie on and you'll be all right. Just don't take your hat off all day.
It's the old Hoover trick, isn't it? Where you like put the Hoover on the hair, turn it into a ponytail.
If that's a tip, you know, I can get Henry out.
Put the hair tie on the Hoover pipe, then you suck the hair up, then you just take the bobble off. There you go, job done.
Probably the most Kiwi thing I've ever heard from a woman. Just Hoover your hair. Practical, I like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about rugby. What else? Like that sort of insight to me is just mind blowing. To make time in the schedule to get your hair. Like in every team that I've been in, there's always people that don't care about their appearance, and then you've got vanity. And I'm sure in a women's team, there is there fake tan? Is there geleration? Is there all these things going on?
Yeah, I think Vicky Fleetwood's probably the top of that list by far. Like, but she loves it. You go, whoa, you look well orange today, and she's like, yeah, the oranger the better, and like, yeah, makeup, hair, everything. She loves.
Does that ever streak? Like, you know, in a wet game or something, does it start to?
No, I think
she's invested in some real good fake tan over the years. She's got the recipe just right, I think. Yeah. So she's normally looking pretty good for it. There's
also girls who in camp bring their like nail kits in. So like they can do our nails in like shellac so it doesn't chip in the game and stuff.
Yeah, Lark Davies is like the nail girl. She was like doing everyone's nails.
So you got shellacking and hair braiding sessions. Is there anything else that happens? What about like the game itself? Do you see any differences when you watch men's rugby to women's rugby? When you're kind of analysing or just watching as a fan, do you see any major differences?
I don't want to say a lot more collision based, because obviously we have collisions and they're big collisions as well, but I think ours is more about the tempo that we can play at and the speed and our basic skills, whereas men's is, I don't know if this is, it's just my opinion, but like men go in and just absolutely smash the ball up as many times as possible, and you know I think we try and play a bit more edge to edge or kicking game and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Do you think, do you know what, I actually agree with you, but do you think that's down to time and space available to you guys? Do you think defences are as aggressive in your game?
I think it's a good question. I think we've had to adapt, because I don't think, well, we're not as big as men.
But you don't need to be, right? Because you're playing against women.
Yeah, of course. So like collisions aren't as big, but I think that could be a factor, that defences aren't as aggressive, or we're coached in slightly different ways, or we want to do it a different way. Obviously we come up against defences who are more aggressive than others, and you have to adapt to that. So I think in ways yes, and in ways no.
Amy, what about you? Have you got any sort of observations?
I think probably quite similar to Beckett. I think there was like stats of like ball in play time, and like there was like 10 minutes more ball in play time for a women's game than a men's game, which I think is quite interesting. And maybe why is that? I'm not really too sure, but I think they're not massive differences. Obviously, it is slightly different, isn't it? But I think at the end of the day, we're all playing rugby. You know, we still like you get those like awful questions like, oh, do you play like normal rules, and like like do you go up and line out? So I think people's like illusion around women's rugby is quite interesting, but yeah, we play all the same laws, all the same stuff, so but yeah, maybe not as collision based as a men's game, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Do you think as you guys, the longer you are full-time professional, do you think you're going to get bigger, faster, stronger Because that's what happened to the men's game, you know. Like over time, like the athlete changed, and then the game changed to like that collision base that we see now. Like, do you think it's going to happen to you guys? You're going to turn into like some sort of like super freak athletes?
I think we've already sort of changed slightly. Like when I first started playing women's, or like came over and started, I was about 75 kilos. I'm now 90 kilos, but still have to have the same output. So I still got to run as fast and be as fit as that 75 kilo player now at 90. So I think we are already seeing that shift. We went through a shift maybe like 2 years ago when they were like, the forwards need to put on 10 kilos each and everyone needs to be massive. So I think we kind of went through that phase and everyone put on a bit of timber, but I think we're now trying to find that balance of maybe I don't run as fast at 90 as I did at 75. So.
Geez, I wish my coach said that to me. Like my USP, my specialist thing was to put on weight. I could do it in a weekend. I could do 3 or 4 kilos easy. So like my whole career was like trying to keep weight off. Do you know any female rugby players with cauliflower ears?
No.
I played in Shan Williams. She's a Welsh girl. She always tapes her ear because she was like starting to get one.
Yeah, I had to tape mine in Six Nations.
But then she tapes it now, so I don't think she actually fully got one.
There's one more question. This can be off the record, or we can chop this in. Like, you know, who's hard? Like, who's hard? You know, like not hard like as in fighting, but who's tough? Like who takes knocks and just keeps going? Who goes to training without a waterproof or waterproof bottoms on? Like, who's that person that...
Beckett trains in a vest all year round, like all year.
So you're
like
tough.
Vest.
No, I just get really hot when I start running around. I think I've got like thermoregulation issues or something because I get so hot.
So, you know, what about someone that's not in the room? Is there someone that's tough, like just...
I think Zoe Allcroft. Yeah, Zoe Allcroft.
100%. She's one I'd want in the trenches with me. She just grafts and grafts and like never asks for anything for it. She just sticks her head in places that you don't want your head to be in, and she never asks for any recognition, but she does such a great job. Yeah,
and like she played through some quite significant injuries in the past as well, like where other people would have gone, absolutely not, I'm not doing any more training. She's like, oh, it's fine, I'll just crack on. Yeah. Like got like stress response in both her feet, her legs, everything. It's like, oh, it's fine, I'll just play 80 minutes again.
Every week.
Just lift me in the line out and drop me, it's fine. I've just got like broken legs.
And this is one more genuine question. Who's like your enforcer? You know, like there's not like an overt enforcer anymore, like that goes around whacking people in games. But you know, when training just like ramps up sometimes, who's that person that just, you know, puts someone in place or keeps someone in check? Like Mako Vunipola would do that with the men's team. If it's like 50% and people are going 100%, Mako would drop a shoulder and put someone on their ass. Like, have you got someone that would enforce that, or have you just got a really respectable team that respect the rules of 50%?
Oh no, it's not respected. That 50% is full on, isn't it? 50% is. I think somebody like a Packer or an Abby Ward or a Poppy Cleal, like any of those, I'd put money on to enforce something pretty heavily.
Yeah, I'd probably say Abby Ward as well. Like a few times she's kind of pulled everyone up and been like,
what are we doing?
What's that? That's not good enough. She's definitely holds herself to very high standards and tries to enforce that on the rest of us.
Growing up for you, Beckett, can I call you Beckett? I feel like we're friends.
Yeah,
now.
of course you can.
Who did you look to as your inspiration? Because you've obviously got Sunter, but when are you going to kind of shunter Sunter? When are you going to push the old girl to the side? And my point is, like, who were your role models? Who were your inspiration? Did you look to men's rugby and women's rugby, or did you just look at one product and go, I want to do that, I want to be that?
I think it's my reality was I didn't watch that much women's rugby. Like, rugby was a big part of my family, and I knew about women's rugby because Waterloo had a women's rugby side, and Jill Burns was at Waterloo. She was my head of house at school, obviously played the same position as me, so she was a big inspiration to me growing up. Always had advice when I wanted it and stuff, and she just gives like bits of advice all the time. She's a very wise woman. But yeah, I think my actual role model was my older brother, Charlie. is a professional rugby player as well, and like seeing what he did to get into that environment to become a professional rugby player was inspirational to me. And I think having somebody that close to home who you can draw inspiration from really helped. But then obviously when I've come into the setup, you know, having somebody like Sunta definitely doesn't hurt. Like way over 100 caps worth of experience.
You can call her old if you want.
No, never. She's well experienced, and having somebody like that to learn from and to develop from is amazing. I mean, it's stuff that you can't pay enough money for, really. Like, some people don't get that chance, and I'm lucky enough that somebody in my position has been that good. You know, she's been World Player of the Year, and she was definitely that for a reason, and she continues that form now. So yeah.
Do you guys watch a lot of rugby? Do you follow the games? Are you always kind of?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Even like in lockdown, the first sport that kind of came back was NRL, and like I used to watch it all the time growing up in New Zealand. You know, league's huge, so even just watching like all sports, like when cricket came back, but just love it. But at the weekends, I literally spend all weekend just watching, like even Mitre 10 Cup back in New Zealand, get that on Sky. Just watch it all. I love it.
Do you watch it as a fan, or are you watching it as like a student?
I think I watch as a fan sometimes, and then sometimes I watch. So like growing up, when I watched with my dad and my brother, we used to pause the game every like 10 seconds or something to say, how has he got there, or what's this doing, or why has this impacted the next phase, and stuff like that. So I think I've learned how to watch it as a student, but sometimes it's just nice to watch it as a fan and have a chat with your mates and enjoy your game.
Amy, what about you? Like, you're obviously playing a long time now. Who were you looking to? Who inspired you to kind of play hooker? Actually, you converted, didn't you? You used to be a back.
Didn't we all? Didn't we all?
No, I never was. You know, I was always a forward. But no, Amy, you converted to hooker. Like, who put you there? Was that your own doing, or?
Basically, I could throw the ball in because I used to do javelin and stuff as a kid, so I was always quite good at throwing. And then I got into under 13s like rep rugby for Manawatu, and they needed a hooker, so they were like, yeah, Amy, you're now a hooker. So that was it. And then I was still playing like school, so that was like rep rugby, and I was playing with boys still, so like under 13s. And then I was still playing at school, obviously, so I was kind of like playing number 8, but then throwing the ball in the line out still, so played a bit of a mixture whilst in the game.
Who did you look at to learn to throw? Because like, throwing is hard, right? You've got to find your own way, but you've obviously got to look at people and model yourself on something. Who did you kind of learn to throw from?
Oh, definitely you, Dylan. You know, just such an inspiration. It was just...
Well, if you watch closely, your stats would be a whole lot better.
No, I think it's a really interesting one. I think throwing's so personal, and like you said, you have got to find your own way. Like, I've gone through periods of time where coaches have been like, oh, you've got to stand like this, hold it like this, put your elbows like this, knees like this, and it's just, I think I've gone away from that and just gone, I've got to be comfortable in the way I throw the ball and have that, you know, that feeling of like, that was a good ball, or this feels comfortable, and I can repeat that and make sure I know what's going to happen to the ball basically when I've released it. And, you know, like as a hooker, you know, as soon as you've released it, you know if it's a good ball or not. And I think just finding your own...
Every time, I just knew it was going to be good.
Yeah, you just got to find that way to replicate it, and I think that's more important than looking like a perfect picture. I've done quite a lot of work with quite a few young girls, and they're all still like, I've got to have my elbows in here and like be bent, and I'm just like, no. Do you feel comfortable when you're doing that? No, you don't. So
I think it's one of those things that it takes years to perfect, and hours and time. But I think with all kind of kids that I teach or anyone, like they've all got like a natural style, and there's a couple of fundamentals that you can give them, but you shouldn't change their individuality. That's like, they know how to throw, they've taught themselves. You can just kind of steer them in a way. But no, I agree with you completely. Girls, to end the pod, we're going to flip it on its head. You get to ask me a question. Shoot.
I've got a question for you. Is there anything in your career that you not necessarily regret, but if you could go back, you would change it? It can be on or off field or anything like that. Just anything within your time frame of your career.
Yeah, good question. Well done.
That's deep. I was just going to be like, who's your favourite?
I think everything that happened in my career kind of drove me or pushed me or gave me those learnings to ultimately grow as a person. And now that I'm finished, I'm I feel like I'm pretty well-rounded, and I got to experience winning, losing, disciplinaries, injuries, all these things. But the one thing that kind of eats away at me is losing a European Cup final, an unbeaten season in the Heineken Cup, and then to go into the final and to be up 21 points at half-time to then lose the game. That kind of eats away at me. That kind of haunts me. But saying that, you got to remember, and you guys know this, losses on the big stage only drive you forward. And then Northampton, we went on to win a couple of things post that event. So I think that kind of galvanised and spurred the team on. But now that I'm finished, I know I'll never have that Heineken Cup medal. It kind of eats away at me. Good question.
What do you think is like the next step for women's rugby, and how do you think we can help that, like push it on?
I love this, because I told my daughter this morning that I was talking to you guys, and she obviously wrote these questions out for you. That's not my handwriting. But I think your job is to trailblaze and to pioneer and to become those role models. Not saying you're not doing that now, but to be more visual. And I think things like O2 kind of creating more content with you guys, making you guys more accessible. Like, I asked you who was your inspiration that got you into it, and you were just very fortunate that you had a school teacher and someone at your rugby club that had played for England. Like, I want my daughter to watch you guys on TV. I want to see more content from you guys. I want you guys to be more accessible. So I think you just got to keep doing what you're doing, kind of throw yourselves into that full-time professionalism and just, I don't know, just inspire and do what you do. Because when you're a dad and you've got a daughter, I want her to have the option to play whatever she wants, And if that's rugby, I want her to be inspired by you guys. So just keep doing what you're doing, trailblaze and inspire.
Perfect.
Ladies, Sarah and Amy, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you get back to that Penny Hill Spa. Go and relax before your next training session. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the insight. I wish you well for the upcoming tournament. Good luck for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.